Brenda W. Clough is the first female Asian American science fiction writer, first appearing in print in 1984. Her novella, Maybe Sometime, was a finalist for both the Hugo and the Nebula Awards and became the novel Revise the World. Marian Halcombe, a series of 11 neo-Victorian thrillers, appeared in 2021. Go ahead, Brenda.
Hi. These, you can tell by the cover, these are novels, Victorian thrillers, and this book is set in 1858. Our heroine, Marian Halcombe, got married and is 6 months pregnant, but now her husband is in jail. And so in this bit, Marian is visiting the lawyer who's defending him. Mr. Plockton was the founder of the firm, old but still hale, a cautious and reserved man with deep creases around his narrow mouth, further echoed by the curve of white woolly side whiskers. He sat behind a wide wooden desk that took up more than half the small room. It was stacked neatly with briefs in piles, and on the side of it, closest to me, was a large silver tray with the tea things and a little kettle on a spirit lamp to keep it hot. He said, "Mr. Camlet's account to date is very considerable." He sipped from his own teacup. "I can understand that you, Miss Halcombe, are bearing the current costs of his legal troubles." "With funds that he gave to me for that purpose," I replied. "You need not fear, Mr. Plockton. You shall have all the financial backing necessary to win Mr. Camlet's acquittal." "I'm a cautious man, Miss Halcombe. I cannot feel that he would wish you to beggar yourself." I was surprised and slightly wary. Surely Mr. Plockton was not suggesting that he did not want to be paid. His life is worth any money to me. "Have you considered perhaps that some other arrangement could be made?" Remembering my banker's warning, I realized I should not fail to consider this. To bankrupt us both and save Theo's life was all very well, but supposing the money ran out before the acquittal, I did not dare to run our finances so close. I stared at the solicitor across the wide brown ocean of his desktop. As a going concern, Mr. Camlet's publishing business is worth little without him. In any case, I am not empowered to sell it or to borrow on its value. Then, allow me to make a suggestion which may not have occurred to you. He rose, creaking to his feet, and courteously refilled my cup with his own hands, adding milk and sugar before I could offer to do it myself. Then he went to the door. I assumed he was going to call for a book or document, but to my surprise, he simply turned the key in the lock. Returning, he sat in the other client's chair rather than returning to his side of the desk. "In return for some trifling personal services from you, I would be willing to adjust your accounts with the firm." The only thought that came to my mind was lace knitting. He wanted to purchase knitted lace, and, "Sir," I gasped, "in my condition, the last thing on my mind is dalliance." "Your condition is precisely what makes you so attractive to the cautious legal mind, Miss Halcombe. So many lawsuits have I seen for parental maintenance. It would disgust you, dear lady. This would not be an issue with you for many months. You would not need to tell your family or your paramour, for there can be no unpleasant mementos of our experiences." I jumped to my feet, but to escape, I would have to pass close by him. "I would most certainly speak, and I shall. And you are aware I shall simply declare that you made a most improper offer to me in hopes of lessening your crushing legal bills." Mr. Plockton smiled at me, an elderly crocodile's smile. "A woman who has lost her virtue, that inestimable jewel, may hope for very little credence in matters of this sort." "You would never make such vile selections to a married lady." "And you are not a married lady, Miss Halcombe. You are a notorious and shameless character, 3/4 on the way to whoredom. Come now. A little adventure will make your fallen state no worse and be of mutual benefit." Boldly, I tried to sweep past him. To my complete horror, he seized the blue and gray flounce of my gown, bringing me to a halt. He put his other hand on my rounded belly, brushing aside the cloak and shawl. When I leaned in, he chuckled and pressed his whiskery face into my bosom. Over his shoulder, I snatched the tea kettle from the stand. It was not quite at the boil, but when I poured it down the back of his neck, the effect was most notable. He shrieked at the top of his lungs, "Ah, you termagant!" Writhing, he fell out of his chair with a crash. I dropped the tea kettle on top of him and, stepping past, turned the key in the lock. The young clerk at the desk in the outer office started to his feet. "Barnaby," I said, "Mr. Plockton has had an accident with the tea kettle. At his age, it may be that a doctor should be called." I passed out into the corridor just as Mr. Smithy came out of his chambers across the way. "Miss Halcombe, oh dear God, you above all should not have consulted Mr. Plockton alone. He sees only gentlemen clients." "Say rather, the firm takes care that he sees no ladies." But then I remembered my earlier visit. "You warned me, Mr. Smithy. You told me that Mr. Plockton should not hear of the case." "I am so sorry I did not make my hint more plain." Mr. Smithy's curly hair seemed to stand nearly on end with fright. "Let us step this way, if you would." He drew me into his office as the other clerks ran to Mr. Plockton's aid. "Once they have all passed, I will conduct you to your carriage. Our senior partner is due to retire at the end of the year. Although his legal work is still very fine, he's eccentric," I offered. "Yes, very good, eccentric. You are the soul of tact. I beg that you will in future let Mr. Hartright consult with him." "That would be my very great pleasure. I only hope he'll be sufficiently injured that he hands the case over to you. And I entirely understand you could not speak frankly about your senior partner. Ah, here is our moment. This way, if you please." Mr. Plockton's screams could still be faintly heard as I was ushered down the hall and out through the deserted reception room into the street. My coachman was at the curb with the carriage. Mr. Smithy handed me up. Before he could shut the door, I said, "Mr. Smithy, I hope you will not get into hot water yourself for your gallantry. Do not fear I will forget this. You are a true gentleman, and we will do business again." Mr. Smithy's plump face went pink, and he bowed as he shut the door. And there you go.